Studies show that the choices we make are based on emotions. Now, some might say that's debatable, but it's hard to argue with neuroscience. But wait, this is an automotive channel, so why am I even talking about this? Well, it's because a lot of folks claim, or at least try to be logical, when buying big-ticket items like cars. But the truth is, it'll always boil down to how a car makes you feel. The minivan is proof that people don't make logical decisions. A vehicle's primary purpose is to move people and cargo from point A to point B, and a minivan does that exceptionally well. It's hard to think of another vehicle that balances space, practicality, and drivability better. But despite that, minivans just aren't as popular as they used to be thanks to our ever-growing affinity for SUVs and crossovers. Let's face it, minivans don't exactly have the X factor that can steer our emotions. But fortunately, there's a car manufacturer who wants to change that. Introducing the 2022 Kia Carnival. Kia doesn't refer to the all-new Carnival as a minivan. They market this as a GUV, a grand utility vehicle. And I can tell you right now, that's more than just a name or some marketing gimmick, because this is a minivan reinvented. Gone are the days when the exterior of something with sliding doors would put you to sleep. This is actually something you'd aspire to buy because you want it and not just because you need it. There's an attempt here to make this turn heads, and not desperately so. And I really think the Kia Carnival's design hits the mark because it catches your attention without looking ridiculous. Before this, it was hard to imagine how you can make such a big vehicle look attractive, but Kia managed to pull it off. Now, this still retains the same silhouette as a typical minivan, but the details elevate the design to a different level. The sleek headlights, this massive grille, and the cohesiveness of all the lines really give the Carnival some character. It looks really aggressive, and you can almost hear it say, "Move, bitch, get out the way." Along the side, you'd think that there's not much you can do to make a giant slab of metal look interesting. But these slightly flared wheel arches actually give this some muscle, and the body lines work to create the impression that this vehicle sits a lot lower than it actually does. The silver accent is probably the most polarizing part of this exterior. Personally, I don't mind it. In fact, I think it's a courageous break from tradition. However, I'm unsure how I'll feel about it 10 years later. But who knows, it might age well. At the back, you get a really clean look, and I love how the rear wiper is tucked neatly under the spoiler. You get these simplistic taillights, but again, the intricacies lie in the details because this has a light bar that stretches across the back. In fact, I think the design team got so carried away creating this that they forgot to include the turn signals and said, oh well, let's just put them over here. Which may seem like an afterthought, but they kind of did the same thing with the headlights. So typically, you'd have your headlight cluster over here. Here you have your headlights, and here you have your turn signals, which are also your DRLs. But where are the high beams? Well, they're over here. See, kind of an afterthought, but it works with the design. And mind you, these headlights, or these high beams, are adaptive. Now, what makes this a more logical choice compared to an SUV is the fact that you get so much more space. Now, I know there are 3-row SUVs, but with SUVs, when you have the 3rd row seats up, you can only fit a few shopping bags at best. With this, you get 1,000 liters of space with the 3rd row seats up. And that doubles to a whopping 2,000 liters of space when you fold the rear seats. But that's not even the best part. This is the best part, riding business class. And I don't even know where to begin because there's just so much to talk about here. But I guess we can start with comfort. And finding your ideal sitting position here is a cinch because all you have to do is press this button for half a second, which automatically adjusts the seat to a zero gravity position. The seat back reclines while the cushion moves up to make it look like you're floating in space. This position increases the seat back and seat cushion support area up to 39%, lowering body pressure up to 40%. So on a long drive, that means less body pressure and no fatigue. But if you want to adjust the seats to your liking, that's fine too. You can adjust the seat back and seat cushion separately. It even has a leg rest so you can really stretch out. And no matter how far back you recline these seats, these armrests will stay in the same position. You can also adjust the seats to move forwards and backwards manually. They can even move from side to side. But aside from all the space and comfort, there are just so many toys back here. For starters, the rear passengers get their own climate controls. There are also privacy shades, and unlike most vans, you can put the windows down, which can come in handy if someone eats too much Mexican on a road trip. Speaking of road trip, the Kia Carnival is the perfect vehicle for one, and I wouldn't be surprised if everyone ends up fighting over who gets to sit on these second row seats. And it's not that the other seats are bad, they're actually quite comfortable, but sitting here is an occasion. And you even get heated and cooled seats and a huge sunroof. Now, another thing that sets this apart from an SUV are these third row seats. And yes, there are 3-row SUVs where you can fit 2 adults sardine style, but not here. Here you can comfortably sit 3 adults. And the best part is you get heaps of toys. You get these individual air vents, bottle holders, charge ports, and privacy shades. Now, if you're thinking all the good stuff's at the back and the driver gets the short end of the stick, think again, because it's not too shabby here. As much as I love the second row seats, I believe this vehicle still manages to spoil the front occupants. For starters, there are power seats for both the driver and front passenger, and you even get memory setting for the driver. And I appreciate how the seat moves back when you step in and back into position when you turn the car on. And you definitely won't be left wanting if you sit here, because you even get a sunroof to give you that premium feel. Other toys include an 8-inch touchscreen with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay that you can connect to wirelessly. The screen could be bigger, but I appreciate the fact that you get physical knobs and buttons. I also like how tactile the steering wheel buttons are, because you can operate most of the features by feel alone. However, it's somewhat counterintuitive, because to move to the next track, you have to press this button down instead of moving it up. Anyway, going back to the infotainment system, one thing I wish it did have is a 360 camera, which I think is a fair ask for a vehicle this big. But you do get a premium sound system, and I'm not sure what brand the speakers are, but they have really good separation. The soundstage is well defined, the frequency response is broad, the sound signature leans towards the bright side, but it never sounds harsh, and there is good bass, at least for my taste. Another thing I really appreciate about this cockpit is the driving position and overall visibility. And you can move the steering wheel pretty close to you, and the dash sits pretty low. For the most part, the ergonomics is fine. All the buttons are well within reach and easy to operate, and again, the driving position is pretty good. My only gripe is the fact that this armrest sits a little too far back. So if you sit close to the steering wheel, only your elbow will end up resting on it. But overall, I think this is a grand utility vehicle because it offers enough space, comfort, and features to pamper me more than I deserve. Now let's see if that holds true when we get it out on the road. Minivans weren't built to cater to the driving enthusiast. But this isn't a minivan, it's a GUV, a grand utility vehicle. Call it what you want, but the bottom line is, people and cargo haulers are not meant to feel exhilarating behind the wheel. And if we're to rate this vehicle for what it really is, our primary concern should be how comfortable and easy it is to drive. So I'm going to start off by saying that this vehicle does a really good job in hiding its mass. The visibility is excellent, so despite its size, it actually feels a lot smaller than it is. Another thing that makes this vehicle feel less hefty is the steering. It's light and direct. A smaller car with a less responsive steering system will actually feel a whole lot bigger than this. Then there's how responsive this is. So under the hood, you get a 2.2-liter turbocharged CRDi engine that puts out 199 horsepower and 441 newton meters of torque. And despite how heavy this is, it always feels light. Now this won't win any drag races, but it just never feels sluggish because there's always more than enough power at any point in the rev range. Now I know this isn't a sports car, but I do want to talk about handling for a brief moment, because I think that's where the Carnival takes a page from SUVs, and dare I say, crossovers. Granted, this does share some architecture with the Kia Telluride and Sorento, but for all intents and purposes, this is still a minivan. And minivans are floaty automobiles that lean from side to side when you tackle corners. But this feels different. It's planted. It feels planted. Yes, you do feel the weight shift when you change directions quickly, but it just never feels unnerving because body roll is limited. It's controlled. And that's surprising considering how comfortable this is. This absorbs road imperfections really well, exceptionally well. So the suspension is obviously tuned for softness, and that's the way it should be in a minivan. But what's surprising is that handling isn't totally compromised. This vehicle is just so perfectly balanced for what it is. You get decent power and good fuel economy. You can get about 8 kilometers per liter in the city in this thing and up to 22 kilometers per liter out on the highway. Then there's the comfort and the fact that handling isn't compromised. And overall, it's just a pleasant riding experience because the NVH is also top-notch. You can hardly hear the engine. You only hear it when you rev it out. And the transmission is also very responsive. So overall, this vehicle ticks all the boxes. And that makes it truly worthy of being called a grand utility vehicle. Well done, Kia. The 2022 Kia Carnival can be yours for 2,998,000 pesos. And I can justify that price tag by telling you that this is a compelling choice when you compare its space, specs, features, and performance against similarly priced competitors. But that would mean making a logical decision. But for the first time ever, we have a people hauler that can actually appeal to your emotions. And since this is a people hauler, the bonus is you get to share those feelings with your entire family. This can be a vessel for many fond memories, memories that'll last you a lifetime. So I'll end by saying that the best way to justify spending close to 3 million pesos on this is to experience it yourself. Thanks for watching.